Hello, 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 hello. This is the Winning Together podcast. Testing. Today it's about belief and your shame story and making breakthroughs, I would say. So this is Coach Shay. Across me I've got Jared. How's your year jamming? Casey.
2020 has been very hard, but good.
Q1 is coming up quick. This year has been flying by.
Lots of confusion, lots of struggle around the world. You see that with like the virus information. I see it on a micro level with clients. I see it in my own life. Like there just seems to be a great frustration right now.
Very interesting. Can you explain a little more what you mean by a great frustration?
I just think that, change in general is hard for people. And you start hearing and seeing mass change. So you have whole countries shutting down or whole businesses putting on break, whole schools not letting people come back. Like Harvard this morning said, spring break's not over. No one come back. So all the students are staying home. So you have all this change, stock market flux up and down. So we're creatures that like to be comfortable in a homeostasis. And when we have all these big changes around us, it gets scary and it shifts the water and sifts things up. And I think on a large scale, it's trickling down. It's a little bit slower, but it's trickling down. And then on a micro scale, it feeds into fear and it feeds into frustration and worry that starts to expand into people's lives. And then they become more fear-focused instead of faith-focused, or more fear-focused, and they get more anxiety and frustration feelings. I've definitely felt that with my clients. I've felt that with my friends and my family. So in my view, it's definitely a big thing that's starting to happen.
Wow. So I felt too. So 2020 has been a great year for me. It's been off to a big start, big things happening, and to see how much, I think there's so much opportunity, and you're right, there's a lot of real shifts in the water that are causing people to look at the sharks instead of stand on the surfboard and get to the shore and stand on the island or getting help or whatever it is. And I think that you're right, focusing on fear instead of faith to create is going to get you in a totally different direction, a whole different trajectory than not. Even, and that's just not on a macro, but on a micro level. Like when I start looking at a relationship with my spouse or a project at home from a fear, like it's not going to get done, I don't have time, I don't know how to do this, versus how can we do this, let me talk about this, let me confront that, it makes a big difference.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about believing. For recovery, first and foremost, you have to believe that it's possible, that something better is going to be there, that there's a future worth fighting for. How does belief show up for you in recovery?
It's those foundational pieces. Hope goes in there. A lot of times when people first start getting into recovery, they've been in a place where they feel hurt, they feel broken, they feel hopeless. And that becomes one of the first pieces that we work on is, can we instill hope in this person? Can we instill hope in their family? Can we instill hope in their future and in their present? And that requires belief. That requires belief that there could be something better. And just by them showing up to treatment, statistically speaking, if you show up to a counseling appointment, you have a 25% increase in your likelihood to change and to maintain and sustain that change.
Really? That's significant.
It's actually even more than what the counselor is going to probably do for you. I mean, statistically speaking, the counselor equals 15 to 20% of that experience in your change. So we're looking at maybe not huge numbers, but when we're looking at change in general, any increase is positive. So that faith, that hope, that belief, all those foundational pieces, they start to set a course or a new trajectory to a better version of that person or a better future or a better outcome.
Is it a zero sum? So meaning that the more that you put in the positive, the showing up, the committing to being there, that then you will decrease the poor behavior, the fear, is it 0-0, like 1-1 ratio?
In some ways it can feel like a 1-1 ratio. One way I've seen it be a little better than that is when there's a spiritual component or a service component or a giving back component. When someone leans more into giving, serving, contributing faith-wise, there tends to be a multiplicity effect. It's more, you're playing with multiplication instead of addition. So you go give 3 hours, you're going to get essentially 9 hours back of good in your life. Where if it's just, I'm going to work on me and only me, I'm going to read a good book, I'm going to study, I'm going to grow some coping skills, you'll get probably 1 for 1. That's at least what I've noticed, what I've seen. It seems like a universal law of abundance kind of playing into that when you give that which you need, you get back in multiplicities.
I love what you're saying there. I found the same thing to be true, and it takes a little bit of faith, but it has to work that way. One of the ways that I've heard Dr. Joe Dispenza talk about it is you start when you're meditating and changing that vision of who you want. That when you turn your matter to matter, it's always 1-to-1. But once you start kind of going quantum and start creating that element of surprise or serenity or serendipity or getting other people involved in your recovery, you multiply that and you find that what you're willing to give, you get a tremendous investment back.
And kind of going back to that theme of, all right, I'm willing to give, but for how long? A lot of times people put like a number on it. Well, maybe I'll do this for 10 days or 6 days, like it's a diet or something. Recovery is not a diet. It's a lifestyle change. You have to give a little every day, increase, improve, expect to have some back days, expect to have some forward days. But what you're trying to do is even your life out where you're not going way up, I'm all in 100%, then I'm way down 100%. And more of a steady, 1 step forward, 2 steps back, 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, and eventually getting more forward than you are getting back, but not going overboard or underboard.
And the statement of, I must do this. I am being this way because that's who I am, and moving forward, and make sure there's limiting all options to going back to how it used to be or how it was. So how does that change? So another thing we want to talk about is shame and that story that goes around that and kind of that story that informs it. Talk to me about a shame story and kind of how to create the opposite of that or how to work through that.
Yeah, shame is such a powerful theme, and it seems to be that our clients or people we work with, they feel like they have to pay a penance. They have to sit in their
You hit it right on the head. I felt like that in my life too, but I see that so clearly when people are going through substance abuse recovery.
And that hit me too. Most of my upbringing, it felt like I had to wait it out. Be good for a certain amount of time, and then you could be forgiven or you could let things go. We have one client right now that he's struggling deeply with this, as he doesn't want to have help. He wants to figure it all out for himself. He wants to show up for his family when he's better, and then say, hey, look what I've done. I'm no longer going to hurt you, because when I was using, I was always hurting you. So he wants to share his good, but he's not there yet. But the support he could be getting from that family and from those friends and those people could make such a powerful shared human experience that when he does get there, it's not going to be so lonely.
It's like the idea of when people, if you're not learning how to be wealthy along the way, if you were to get wealth at a certain point, you wouldn't be able to hold on to it anyway, because you're not becoming the person that is wealthy, because that happens first, and then the wealth comes, because then you can actually hold on to it. If it comes too quickly, or if you get to a place with your family, you want to have that. It's almost like that Superman experience. Like you're Clark Kent and you want to go to the phone booth and change and then come back as Superman and just be that guy. It's not how it works. Not only do you need the people to see you along the way, that's how you heal and make things right. That's how you unlock the shame story too, because if you just decide to go and do your work and come back, you don't unlock where the layers are at or where the triggers are at, or the things that are going to trip you up coming back around the other way.
I love how you phrase that, the shame story. I mean, we all tell stories to ourselves, and from our experiences, what we're hearing. And when we start to change those stories, those experiences, the shame starts to go away or transform.
Mm-hmm.
and turn into something productive or something positive, that does require letting down your ego, letting down your pride, allowing yourself to be vulnerable, allowing people in your life to see you hurt and see your pain. And in that space, there's a lot of growth, and it is hard, but man, it's not any harder than what you're already doing.
Good point. Like, you're right. This doesn't. I don't think shame goes anywhere. I think you transform it into something different. You transmute it into a different experience, a different way of being. And to get there, you've been there, and I've been there, and we'll go there again. Where you just put your ego on the anvil, and you take the big old sledgehammer, and you give it to somebody or the thing, and you let it just get destroyed and crushed. And it's from that broken place you're able to now put them back together in a way that matters, or that you want to become, or that you're fighting for, that can serve those around you better.
And I think a space that so many of us miss the boat on is when we do put that on the anvil and we crush it down, we're still criticizing ourselves. We're still critical. We're still self-loathing. We're still unforgiving. We're forgetting that there's this process of allowing something greater than ourselves to help us. And the word that isn't used enough is grace. We're not allowing grace to take part and make the difference for us. And one space I see that coming up in my life is I can try my very best, and if I'm comparing that very best to somebody else's very best, I'm really going to feel like garbage, because there's oftentimes I'm far beneath where someone else is at. But in the truth of it all, we're both way beneath what we need to be to receive everything in this life that we hope for. And that's where grace comes in and makes up the difference.
I heard this great statement that is, people often go to, social media, and they'll come back with a comparison hangover. That they'll have that experience where you're comparing yourself and getting so caught up in what you're not or what isn't, that you're not creating any space for what is, or where you are, or your possibilities, or even, how can I serve them? How can I notice them for the good things they're doing, or giving them that way? Okay, so it's when you are hurting or suffering, grace almost looks like weakness, or it looks like
vulnerability.
Yeah, well, that's what it is.
Yeah.
But why do you think it's characterized that way instead of, grace is growth? It's not, grace isn't stepping back, it's not wimping out.
Well, it kind of goes back to what you're saying with the Superman complex. We often want to receive acknowledgement, we want to see recognition, we want to be seen as stronger than we are. We paint a picture with our story that we're something, whatever that is, and then reality kind of checks in. Oh wait, I have weaknesses. Oh wait, I make mistakes. Oh wait, I have failures. And societally, we may say, let's hide those. Let's present and show perfect. And there's that comparison piece. So it becomes this space in which, well, I don't want to suffer. I don't want to suffer more. I don't want to be seen as less than. I'm getting some sort of benefit from presenting great, presenting powerful, presenting as the smartest person, or whatever that is. So I think that's where that tails off, is that now we have to be humble. We have to recognize, like, what am I really getting out of this? I mean, there's a payoff for everything. Is my ego and my pride and the validation of let's just say the world or others, is that enough for me? Is that enough for me to stay happy and stay clean or whatever, or to have a productive life? And it generally is not.
Is there ever time it is?
I think there's this half-life where people feel like it is, and they'll stay kind of stuck in these patterns where they'll get to the top of where they think that they're maxing, they're excelling, they're doing great, and then they look around and they'll say, well, it's lonely. Where is everybody? Oh, everyone just says yes now. They don't really hear me, they don't see me, they don't validate me. And then a fall hits.
I think the grace is not also seeing the cracks in you, and the ugly, and the scars, and the broken, and the inabilities. I think it's also noticing, hey, you did 10 more push-ups than you said you could, or you've been going to counseling now for 3 months and you don't snap at your kids like you used to, or hey, you know what? You're applying for that job you've always wanted that you've been too afraid to because you told yourself you weren't good enough. And even if you don't get it, I think it's the grace is also acknowledging along the way where you are growing, changing, and making sure that you notice it. It doesn't have to come from anywhere else. It has to come from you, that you're like, okay, 10 more push-ups, that's progress. That's, before it was this and now it's this and it's not where I want to be. But I think that grace is also the stuff that, the good stuff, letting the good stuff in to where you are able to build on it.
Oh, 100%. This mentality of awareness and self-understanding, it's having a third view, being able to pull out and really embrace perspective, and then seeing the good. So many people, so many of my clients, they don't see themselves well. And you can pour good into them, you can share how awesome they are, and other clients will do the same thing. They'll try to like pump somebody up or feed them, and it's like the bottom of the cup is not there. And it's just going in and splashing everywhere. Then everybody feels empty by the end of that. So it does take that self-love, self-compassion, self-awareness to really to see those small but important shifts in yourself.
So I think on a final note, I'd like to talk about is just, so my 10-year-old was trying to explain to my 6-year-old what tattletelling is. And they're trying to tell that, hey, if you're telling mom or dad about something like I wasn't doing, that's tattletelling. And I think, start tattletelling on your shame. Start selling it out. That's the place you can be a narc on. That's the place you can sell out. You can tattletale. You can start shining light on it, because shining the light on the shame is the only way that you're able to bring grace in. That's the only thing, the way that shuts it down is just shining light on it.
And just to clarify, for those who are still unsure of what shame looks like, shame is that little voice that says you're garbage. You're not good enough.
It's icky.
It's icky, it's sticky, and it stinks. Guilt, on the other hand, is the word that says, I think I could do better. I know what I did was wrong. I can change from this. It's that understanding that you're...
Guilt is good, by the way.
Yeah, you're a little off and you can correct. So it can be seen as a positive. Where people go wrong is they confuse the two, and they just think it's all bad.
Mm-hmm.
And don't criticize, don't do that. There's an extreme in both ways. So absolutely understand the difference. Guilt is good. It motivates you for change. Shame is just not. You got to tattle the line. You got to get rid of it. You got to be done with it. You got to transform it.
Would you, as you're the counselor, would you say that more often than not, shame is not even, the shame you're feeling is not even yours, that it's something that came down from somebody else or some other experience?
Oh, absolutely. I'll often ask, okay, when you heard those words in your mind, was it your voice you heard, or was it someone else's? And more times than not, be like, oh my gosh, never
it's not even
realized.
yours.
It's not my grandpa, or that's my mom, or that's my dad, that's my ex-husband. Like, whoa, I didn't realize, but the voice, the actual sound of the voice in my head is that person. So why are we carrying that?
Great question. Why are you carrying that? Right here on the Winning Together podcast, that's what we want to figure out is, why are you? So that you can find a way to win and let you through, and not the other shameful voices keep coming through. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. Everyone have a great day. We hope you enjoyed it. Tell your friends, share with your family, and we'll catch you on the flip side. Thanks, Jared.